12:30 on the button. Let's make it happen. All right. This is exciting. This is fun. This is kind of in recognition of the holiday season and wanting to celebrate a little bit. We went back to our childhoods, a lot of us, and wanted to talk about the island of Misfit toys from the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer Christmas special. So the Misfit toys for us are products and great ideas, and we're focused on Microsoft because that's where we live and who we are and what we do. Products and great ideas that either didn't pan out, died too early, or really, upon looking back, weren't that great of an idea. So we each took a different angle. Our Meet the Team is a little bit different. This week, Mark is Charlie in the Box. Julie, I forget what your character is.
The cowboy that rides an owl.
Cowboy that rides an owl. Todd's the airplane that doesn't fly. Derek, who's not here, the elephant with pink spots. I am the choo-choo with square wheels. And Emily is the doll who can't cry. So we'll go through, and just this is for us, the kind of, we'll talk about each of our favorite Misfit toys over the years. We'll do a brief in memoriam section over the graveyard of some products and components that we look back on fondly. We'll do a little holiday sing-along with your favorite Misfit toys, and then we'll talk about some resources. As usual, use the chat. It's always a lively chat thread that's happening in conjunction with our session. And with that, we'll let it rip. And I think we're starting with Mark.
Cool. So one of mine is this content type hub, gallery, where they essentially just put some lipstick on that pig. It's a different UI, but it fundamentally works the same way. The promise isn't there yet. Where we're going to have a different way to syndicate content types from the enterprise to different sites. In fact, I find the UI is frustrating, and actually forgot to put something on the slide. Okay. It also, when you make a change to a content type, the box used to be checked that said, if you want to make this change propagate to things that inherit from it, that box is unchecked where it used to be checked. So where if you're used to making changes and having them propagate to child content types, that won't happen unless you're really, really careful. So it's just, to me, it's sliding sideways as opposed to moving forward. That's content type gallery that acts like a content type hub. That fits on the island, I think, rather well. Document sets, everybody's favorite. And they modernized them back in 2019. And that modernization seems to have stopped immediately after Lincoln announced this. And I love Lincoln. I just wish that he hadn't dropped this one where it was. Document sets now look like little special folders in a document library. You can click on them and you can go in and you can see the documents in them. And a lot of the internal plumbing still works. The metadata will push down from the document set to the documents within it. But one of the best things about a document set was that welcome page where we could configure web parts and we can add additional information to decide what we wanted to show about that document set. Sort of, I always thought about it as the outside of the manila folder. You know, the stuff that you write on this invisible manila folder right here, so that you know what it is when you look at it. That part's gone. So they just stopped there. And all of us who really like document sets really don't know where they're going with it. We haven't heard much of a peep about it. I was asking Sean Squires about it on Twitter the other day, and he said, "Yeah, that's So we're where we are."
Yeah, Krista's in agreement. The document sets were really handy.
It's funny because and I think it's fair to repeat this, at MVP Summit one year, probably 3 or 4 years ago, we were asking about it, and they said, well, the telemetry shows that nobody uses document sets. And it's like, well, okay, that's fine. And then they sort of neutered them by moving them into this modern experience, but not. So now I'll bet the telemetry shows even fewer people use them. But that's not because we don't find them useful. It's because we can't actually get anything out of it. It's a bummer.
Yeah, exactly.
Love to see that come back and really work.
Mark, I'm trying
Onward.
to ascertain if there's a build here with that black slide. No, it doesn't look like it.
Well,
Okay.
it's not it's actually a little animated GIF that I stole from Lincoln's article.
Gotcha. There's a build here.
Yes. Oh, is there ever?
Oh boy.
But don't go too fast. No.
Okay, fine.
So events in the modern event web part is pretty slick. I mean, it looks nice. It definitely looks modern. You have basically all of the fields that you could fill out about events in the past. There's even a classic events list sitting under the covers. So when you go to create a modern event, you fill in the thing. Now click, Mike, and you see the event in the events web part. Perfect, right? Works out really, really well. Well, weekly updates, that's one of those wacky events where we actually do it every week, right? So let's add some recurrence. Click. So we go into the events list that's sitting in that site. We open the event up in classic mode because
I was just going to say that looks decidedly classic.
Yep. It's the same old events list that we've used for 15 years or whatever. And so we can check that box. It's a repeating event weekly, every whatever day it is. Perfect. Now I've got my recurring events. And what happens in the events web part? Ta-da! It disappears. So the capability to do recurring events is there under the covers, but as soon as you put in recurrence, the event disappears. So instead of getting what you want, you get nothing. And that just doesn't help anyone at all because lots of events recur. You got to put in your timesheet once a week. You got to do our bookkeeping once every month, whatever it is, with the monthly close. That's a real missing one. A lot of people ask about this one. I haven't heard any good stuff about it. So this is a lot like your train with square wheels, Mike.
It's a bumpy ride.
It's a very bumpy ride.
And even in Classic, that wasn't. Sorry.
Go ahead, Emily, please.
Even in Classic, it wasn't that great because when it was on that list of events, it would show the start date and the end date of the series. It wouldn't show the dates in between, and it would list it as of the start date. So you really weren't getting that in context of when it was.
Yeah. And I sort of feel like with recurrence, they've always sort of felt like, well, but that's hard. And it is hard. I mean, I used to write Camel to pull out the data for recurring events, and it's ugly and it's confusing and all that sort of stuff. But we had it. It worked. And
yeah, Mark, you and I built a custom JavaScript based solution for this way back at the beginning of you and I working together, and it's totally doable. It's just whatever. Exactly. Yeah, and Mike says, and still no real exchange interop, which is a good point.
Yeah, and wouldn't it be nice if we could just click on that event and put it on our calendar, or vice versa? But nope. I seem to have a lot of toys lying in my attic that I never use anymore. My last one is this thing about page comments. Tell me I'm wrong, please. But the idea here is, you can have a super important announcement. You've got comments down at the bottom. Isn't that cool? It's great. We can get some engagement with our users. And, somebody might say, hey, Mark, thanks for the announcement. But then somebody else says the first paragraph is wrong and they don't tag me. I'll never know. It'll never get to me. Unless I go back to that page every day or something, I'm never going to know that somebody has put a really important comment on that page. So there's no back and forth unless people do that at mentioning stuff, and even that wasn't there in the beginning. So it's just that's another thing where it feels like they sort of half built it and then stopped. Those comments could be nested into Teams somehow, into Teams chat. They could be nested into Yammer somehow. I don't really care how they do it, but it ought to be something where we get notifications and we understand that that's
Krista just posted, yet the like functionality sends an auto alert to the page creator. Couldn't agree more. They got the like right, but not comments, which is the important one. That's
interesting. I've never gotten one of those. So that just means that I've never created any content that anyone liked.
Yeah, I have a news section in my intranet, and I try to create from general accounts as much as possible, but sometimes I forget and put it on my personal one. And I have one person who likes every single post that I send up there, which is great, but I constantly get emails of so-and-so liked your post, so-and-so liked your post. I'm thinking, okay.
But it's so validating, don't you think?
Sure.
I'm sure that you can just go into the configuration and turn that off, right?
Probably, yeah.
Oh, no, you can't.
And Mark, no. do I remember correctly, speaking of configuration, that we can't turn off comments? It's a tenant level setting, right? To enable comments by default or disable them by default?
There's a tenant level setting that determines whether or not comments are on or off globally. Right. And then any page that you edit, you have to decide whether you want comments on or off. So it's either
there's not a site
either
setting.
Tenant level or page level. There's nothing in the middle.
So if I own a site and I don't want to deal with this, I don't have much of a choice.
Yeah, my advice is always turn it off, because if you turn it on, people are going to expect that you're going to engage with them.
Right.
And you just may never know that they did it. So another square-wheeled.
Sounds like you just need to train them to hit like when they reply.
Well, then Krista will just get an email. What good does that do?
Send emails Krista, and she lets you know. And
all right, Krista, you're being pressed into service.
I'm good with that.
We'll skip to Julie, and I think, Julie, this is where you and AC get a moment to shine here.
Yeah, we do, because I copied both his issue comment and his blog post from Voitana. So in the SharePoint framework developers world here, and I did a balloon with the date on here, 6/8/2017, since 2017, and it's actually effectively earlier than this, because both Andrew and I were at the original dev kitchen, where we were like, hey, application customizers, this is wonderful, but we want other places on the SharePoint page that we can extend. So not only the top and the bottom, but we'd like to be able to add things to the menu item, below and above the left rail menu in Teams, and below the bar in the right side of the site. So there's, he has this nice little picture in his comment on some places where we'd like to extend. And then, of course, the added one, which was in his 2020 wish list, which we all kind of collaborated on a little bit, was that we want to be able to put a SharePoint framework solution in the edit display pane of the list item. So when you do a list item, now you have the default list view item edit experience. You can also put a Power App in there, but I don't want to put a Power App in there. I want to have that canvas be someplace where I can put a SharePoint framework solution, so that I can write a custom form or a custom solution for that edit experience. And this sort of actually spins off doc sets too, because the welcome page, one of the reasons we really loved having the welcome page on the doc set is we used to be able to inject JavaScript onto that welcome page and be able to do a lot of nice customizations and create a really great user experience for custom business solutions. So these are the two big ones that have basically just been sitting there since day one. And we wish they were there, and they just aren't. So
maybe it's hard. Maybe it's just hard to do.
I don't think it's hard. Promising, though, is if you follow the PMP calls, Vesa just announced 2 Thursdays ago that 1.14, they're hoping to give us that edit experience in the page for the list items. So hopefully, we'll cross our fingers. Maybe we'll see something there. Maybe we won't, but it's a long time coming.
Before we skip to Todd has some things. Some of the things in here are things that are out that have gone in the wrong direction. Some of the things are things that were in market and have been retired in favor of other things, where they just kind of fell off. I don't think this is intended to be a bitch fest at Microsoft. I don't think you'll find stronger advocates for Microsoft than you will on this call, but we hold them to a pretty high standard too. So you'll see some of each. You'll see some things that are lamented and gone, and you'll see some things that should be and just are not quite there. in here, and I'll let Todd talk about one of those, I think, lamented and gone questions.
Yeah. So the content query web part was a great friend of mine early in my SharePoint career, because as we all know, I can't write code, and this was a great way for me to put data on screens without having to be able to have any skills. And it is a skill that I have pulled through. This is a screenshot of my blog as of yesterday. So like the different builds of SharePoint. In the background, that's an XML file that I use PowerShell to, it goes out, does a thing, grabs some data, adds some XML to an XML file, uploads it to my blog. And then I use a content, it's not a content query, but a content editor web part to throw that up in there. And that works really well, but that all went away in SharePoint Online. So you can't do that. And I missed that because that was an easy way for me to get structured data up into a SharePoint page.
But you can write PowerShell, Todd.
I can.
Is that 2010? Is that 2010, Todd?
Yeah, yes, it is. One of the best blogging
just
platforms.
needed to point that out.
I think that was right around the turn of the last decade, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and just they don't make them the way they used to. Remember when blogging engines were as good as SharePoint 2010? This newfangled stuff.
These kids and their WordPress.
Oh my God. Oof. And they're being able to view it on their mobile phones. And so we had talked about, as a group with Sympraxis, bringing up the mobile phone thing. Are we going to do that later on today? Or
yes.
On this thing?
Yeah, I have it as in mind.
Okay. So the content, and that should be content query, that should be content editor web part. But that was an easy one. You could sort and all that kind of stuff. So I missed that one. This is one, and actually earlier today I did a webinar for our friends at SysKit talking about provisioning and governance and all of that. Site designs, templates, and site scripts are a great way to start provisioning and have some sort of governance on what you do when you provision SharePoint sites, and you can have it be a default one so the users don't even need to know about it. Just, your branding just gets stamped out, whatever. It's a great idea. And one of the things that it doesn't do is allow you to add folders or files. You can create libraries, but you can't create any of that kind of structure. And this is from about 8 years ago, I forget, but they were like, the site scripts do all these things, and the 4 blue ones at the bottom will be coming soon.
In about 5 minutes, I think they said.
Yeah, it was just around the corner. And here it is. I think I might have blogged about this right after I installed my 2010 farm, but they still haven't come out. So you get 98% of what you need from site scripts and site designs, and then just... So I wish they would fix that.
I love Emily with the fact check. September 2020.
Yep. I think it was before that. I think it might have been 2019 because as I remember, I was in the room when this slide was on the screen. So it would have had to have been 2019.
That might be an NDA.
I could be wrong. Maybe I teleported myself.
Yeah.
Or they reused the slide in 2020 after having presented it in 2019. Also possible.
I think I have one more in here.
Still nothing in there for adding web parts, though, right?
Yeah, that would be another one. But at least I did.
Pages.
They didn't promise that one and then not deliver. But yes, that's another one. Being able to do anything on the web part page and make your hand disappear.
You can do that with PNP provisioning, but then you're getting into harder stuff.
Let's visit the scrap heap of history a little bit.
Yes.
Todd?
So this one, Derek requested that we at least give this a mention somewhere. The Fab 40. I don't know that Misfit is a strong enough adjective. For those of you that aren't nearing retirement like all of us, the Fab 40 was a gift that Microsoft gave us right after MOS came out in SharePoint 2007. So I don't even know if I had kids when this came out, but it was 40 examples of what you could do with SharePoint. And this is a knowledge base, and there were a bunch of others. And this came out, and everybody's like, "Oh, SharePoint is this great extensible platform." And if everybody was just like me, we got these 40, and half of them were site templates, half of them were site definitions, which we'll come back to later. We installed all 40 of them in our SharePoint 2000 farm and poked around them and all that, and then maybe used one or two, but then kind of forgot about them. And then many years later, Time passes and all that. SharePoint 2010 comes out, and we all try to upgrade our SharePoint 2007 farms to 2010. And then the insidiousness of the Fab 40 really makes itself known, because half of them will upgrade, sort of, if you install the Fab 40 in your 2010 farm, because they're site definitions, which ironically are in the templates folder. But then half of them were site templates, which means the site itself would upgrade, but then you couldn't create any more because the template was squirreled away into a document library as an STP file. It was just horrendous, the mayhem that these things put into SharePoint 2007 and 2010 farms. So that was one as an administrator and somebody who did a lot of upgrades and migrations, this one. And then if you try to pull it out and put it someplace else, oh, it's just, man, I need to try.
And Todd, like, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, Greg commented, didn't one guy make all those? And I think that is the case. Isn't there one person who made those? No, it wasn't. Okay.
No, that was part of the problem. Every one of them was made by some different person in MCS or, like all over the organization. And there was no consistency. If you actually looked under the covers, it's like, oh, well, as Julie might say to me, I wouldn't do it that way.
I don't ever say that.
As Julie might say to everybody.
It might be apocryphal, but I had heard that when they came out, and I don't know who wrote them, but they were like a marketing thing to get people jazzed about what you could do with the platform. But then people put them in place and started using them not as proofs of concept, but as production things.
Yes.
And nobody on the SharePoint team ever said, hey, that's not why we wrote those. We wrote them as templates. They're not going to, nobody stepped in because they were adopted really well.
There was actually a site where they were hosted, and it was almost the beginnings of an app store, because these things were downloadable and installable. They had, information wrapped around them explaining what they were with a preview and all that sort of stuff. And you pushed a button to download it. It was a lot like an app store, except that they were more like viruses.
It was just horrible. Yeah.
It was a great idea until it wasn't.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't a great idea really in the beginning either.
Well, good idea, bad implementation, I think. But
yeah. I think templates of frequent use cases and scenarios are brilliant if you're going to maintain them and make them accessible.
So the chat conversation is saying, so Andrew is saying that it was a guy named Rob Howard, excuse me. And he was also Sandbox Solutions. Poor dude. That's terrible.
I remember Rob Howard. He was a good guy, except for this.
We didn't put Sandbox Solutions in this.
I know. Why didn't we do that? Yeah. Too many things.
Yeah, too much. All right. In the interest of time, let's move to Emily's got a few dolls who don't cry here.
So SharePoint News is one of my favorite things in Microsoft 365, and I was really excited at the 2020 Ignite when they announced Boost News for the organizational sites. And while it is out now, you can only do it for a specified time frame. We're missing until the news post is viewed and the specific number of impressions reached. What's super weird about this is that when you look at the roadmap and the associated blog from this being announced, it's even in the blog saying that those items are there. So I feel a little bit like I got some furniture from IKEA and there's just some pegs missing. Like, are they still coming or not? I don't really know.
Some pegs missing.
And the Boost thing is only available when it's an organizational news site. It's not available just on any old site.
That I think was expected because they did say that like the communication managers would be able to do it in the Ignite. So I kind of get that point where you want to have some verified company news that has special abilities more so than everyone else. So everyone's not constantly boosting each other's news to knock them out.
Fair enough, but I don't think they sold it that way.
No, they could. Yeah,
little few pigs missing is I like that.
The next
Emily, before the next slide, did you also have time to read on this slide?
Oh, thank you for calling that out. So that was also announced that they were going to be having time to read, right kind of near that published data, just like they do on the Microsoft articles. It's not anywhere on the roadmap, so I don't know if they're just not going to do it. I hope they do. And then this one is just more of, I don't think it's a great idea, even though it all exists. So it's kind of like our train with the square wheels for sure, is the Teams Wiki. So my first and biggest complaint about it is that it's not actually searchable from Microsoft Teams. So I'm not really sure what the point is if you can't search for content in it. The next thing that's really frustrating about it is when you right click on it to remove tab, and it even says this will, permanently remove tab. It doesn't warn you that it's also going to permanently delete your content. So this content gets made into MHT files in a SharePoint document library, and it gets deleted out of there, and it doesn't even go to your SharePoint recycle bin. So it's truly gone. And then if you're just going to compare use cases of what you're going to be using, like the Teams Wiki for, compared to like taking meeting notes in OneNote, I would say there's not a lot of features there. You can do so much more in OneNote, and you're already getting a OneNote with your SharePoint site. Why not just use that and just add it as a tab?
Yeah, I don't understand that either. That seems like the default tab that they should have is the OneNote. That would make way more sense.
It's almost like Teams was written by one team and SharePoint was written by another, and they never talked to each other. But I mean, how would that be possible? I mean, they're both on the same island, for God's sake.
We're just gonna keep it positive, Mark.
Oh, I'm sorry.
He's out of control, folks.
Emily, anything else?
No, all set.
All right. Well, I'll summarize in mine. Mine's a quick one. Just a note of lament. Thank you, Todd, for the screen grab. The long lost and oft lamented Windows Phone platform. Definitely missed the device itself. Thought the hardware was lovely. The live tiles were a great concept. And I realized I was in trouble when I was taking the train into Boston, and I went to hand the conductor money for a ticket, and the conductor's like, you can pay with your phone. And I'm like, no, don't, show me how to do it. And I pull out my phone, and he looks at my phone. He's like, oh, no, sorry. That was it. That was it right there. That really underscored the issue. So it was a really nice run while it lasted. The $25 billion they spent on Nokia. Oh well, better luck next time, I suppose. But we miss it fondly.
I do.
So, right?
It's a great product.
Yeah. Yep.
Choo-choo. And some things in the graveyard to discuss. We just have a couple minutes left. We don't have Bob German on the line today, do we, to talk about Silverlight?
Poor man.
Yeah.
Poor guy. Let's write an entire book about a technology and then the next day have them deprecate it. Oh.
That's why Scott Hillier stopped writing books.
I believe it.
Yeah, right?
And you know that he was encouraged to write that book by people who probably knew where Silverlight was going.
Yeah. Yep. Anything else to say about the others? The name checks for InfoPath and SharePoint Designer, excuse me.
I actually really missed SharePoint Designer. I was able to do some really great stuff with that. That was a great toy that was discontinued too early.
Yeah, I agree.
And Clippy is around, but in an ironic way now, as a set of memes in Teams, in GIFs that you can do. But in general, yeah, that's in the graveyard, and for good reason.
He's the OG GIF.
I'm surprised it didn't work with Microsoft Bob in here somewhere.
There's actually in the resources, Todd. While I was digging into this, there's a terrific read about the whole history of Bob. And you know who the product manager for Bob was?
Bob German.
Someone who was a little bit more married to Bill Gates at the time.
No.
Yeah, this was Melinda's baby.
I had no idea.
It's a really good story. Highly recommend it. So
I actually had a laptop with Bob on it. It was weird.
Yeah, I was trying to explain it to Emily before. She's like, I don't know this thing of which you speak. It was a good.
Better off.
But there's a good history there. The Museum of Failure, in doing some of the research for this, was a lot of fun, and it's across all technology, and a matter of fact, all kinds of products in there. And there's we're lucky to have Andrew with us today. That wish list, or if you care about SPFx and you're not following Andrew, I highly recommend that you do. This guy's a rock star in this regard, and these wish lists are very, very useful. I think we probably all agree with what's on those wish lists. Anything else to add? We had a lot of fun kind of researching this one.
I think we should just spell out that we're going to be all on vacation for December 29th. So Don't join us in 2 weeks because we won't be here.
Enjoy your time without us. 2 weeks after that, we'll put something in place for January 12th. You'll see some promotion from us. The idea that we're kicking around is talking about accessibility in SharePoint. That was an idea that came up today that people seem to embrace. So
yeah,
we'll talk about
probably stick in there. I got a lot to offer there too. So
awesome.
Good topic.
Thank you.
All
We
right.
are at time. Want to thank everybody for joining us. Wish you the very best of happy and healthy holidays for everybody.
Is this where you say look under your seats because everybody gets a Misfit toy?
Everybody gets a soon.
If I had that kind of logistical capability, but it would have been done except for supply chain problems. We can have
Yeah,
Exactly.
They're sitting,
That's what it
sitting
was.
on a boat outside.
Sorry, I interrupted you when you were being all nice and.
I was trying to be nice,
Yeah,
cordial
You're
and
so
of the
good.
I
season.
apologize.
That's all right. Well, fine. See ya.
But it's been quite a 2021. Let's hope that 2022 kicks off with a nothing. Let's just hope it kicks off with nothing.
Kicks off quietly.
Yep.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us and for joining us all year and all your contributions. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody.
Happy
you.
holidays.
Bye.
Bye.